I walked into my sister's promotion party with a gift in my hands and a warning in my gut. 99 guests, all dressed like they belonged to some elite club of polished success, raised their glasses for her. And then there was me, the one they forgot to include in the family slideshow, the one they only remembered to humiliate. I didn't expect kindness, but I didn't expect my Richard's fist either, or his hand tangled in my hair as he dragged me across marble floors like I wasn't his daughter. My sister smirked, sipping champagne. "You had it coming," she said. No one moved. No one stopped them. But here's what they didn't know. I made one call, and by morning, everything they built, the careers, the facade, the power, lay in ruins at their feet. The invitation had been printed on thick, glossy cardstock. Elegant cursive letters embossed with gold foil like it was a royal coronation. In celebration of Madison Hale's well-deserved promotion to regional VP, my sister, the pride of the Hale family, and the person who made it her full-time job to remind me I was not one of them. The venue was as extravagant as ever. Chandeliers dripped from the ceiling like crystals suspended in time. The piano player played jazz-like background noise for the wealthy, and servers floated with champagne trays like they belonged to another world. I hovered near the back, near the coat check, clutching a box wrapped in navy ribbon like it might protect me. Madison was glowing in crimson silk, surrounded by executives and extended family members who adored her. I watched her pose for photos with our parents, my Victoria leaning in close, my Richard's hand proud on her shoulder. I wasn't invited into the frame. When she saw me, her smile tightened. Not out of discomfort. No, it was amusement. She walked over slowly, champagne flute in hand, her heels echoing across the floor like punctuation. "Oh, wow," she said, glancing at my dress, a simple black shift I had worn to 3 different events already. "Didn't expect you to actually show." "Bold of you." "I'm family," I said flatly. "Are you?" she said, laughing into her glass. "Well, tonight's about winners, but hey, it's nice that you came." She walked away before I could reply. My face burned not just from her words, but from the way people around her grinned like they were in on the joke. I scanned the room for my Richard. He was at the bar laughing with someone in a navy uniform. My Victoria was deep in conversation with a board member from Madison's firm. I didn't belong here, and I knew it. But I stayed because despite everything, the exclusion, the cruelty, a small part of me still thought. Maybe tonight will be different. Maybe someone will say they're proud. Maybe someone will ask how I'm doing. Instead, I was invisible until I wasn't. Until I became the show. And all it took was one toast. One moment where Madison raised her glass and said, "To those who earn their titles the hard way and to those who just show up," the laughter echoed across the ballroom like applause. My Richard looked at me then, like I'd embarrassed the family by existing, and I saw it, that flicker in his eyes, the warning before the storm. I turned to leave. Whatever scrap of dignity I had left was worth more than another hour in that ballroom. But I only made it 3 steps before my Richard's voice cut through the clinking glasses and shallow conversation. "Leaving already," he said too loud. "Did someone finally offer you a job that suits your talents?" The crowd chuckled. My spine stiffened. I turned around slowly. "What's that supposed to mean?" He stepped forward. My sister was now right behind him, arms folded, smirk in place like it had been carved into her face. My Richard gestured toward the servers. "They're hiring help. Maybe they'll take someone with your underwhelming rum." More laughter. The kind that didn't need to be loud to humiliate. "I came here to show respect," I said, voice trembling. "But clearly that's not something this family understands." "Oh, don't act like the victim Sienna," Madison snapped. "You weren't even invited. You just showed up like always, clinging to relevance." I looked at her, then him. "You're all the same pretending you earned everything when you've been feeding off my silence for years." The room hushed. Even the piano player paused mid-chord. My Richard's face twisted. "What did you say?" I said. I never got to finish. He moved faster than I thought a man his age could. His fist collided with my cheek so hard I stumbled backward. Glass shattered somewhere nearby, or maybe that was just my hearing cracking under the shock. Then came the pain, bright, white, consuming, and before I could even react, his hand was in my hair. He yanked hard. I screamed not out of fear, but from the raw tearing sensation as strands ripped away from my scalp. I tried to grab his arm, but he was already dragging me toward the exit like I was some drunken intruder. 99 guests watched, and no one moved. Some gasped. A few turned their eyes, but no one stopped him. As we passed the dessert table, I locked eyes with my sister. She raised her glass again. "To consequences," she whispered just loud enough for me to hear. "You had it coming." And then she smiled. The double doors slammed shut behind us. The hallway was quieter, colder, but it didn't feel safer. Not when I was crumpled on the floor, dress torn, lip bleeding, scalp throbbing like fire under my skin. My Richard stood over me for a second, then said nothing. He turned and walked back inside like I was nothing, just a stain to be forgotten on the party's marble floor. But what they didn't know was that was the last time they'd ever touch me without consequence. The night air slapped me harder than my Richard did. I stumbled into the parking lot, each step shaky, unsteady. My heels clacked against the pavement like drum beats counting down to collapse. When I reached my car, I gripped the door handle with both hands, trying to keep myself from shaking apart. I slid into the driver's seat and slammed the door shut behind me. Silence. My breath fogged up the window. My heart was racing, pounding so loud it drowned out every other sound. Then I looked in the rearview mirror, and I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Blood traced the corner of her mouth. Her hair was tangled strands torn at the root. Her eyes, my eyes, were rimmed red, not just from the slap, but from everything that had led to this moment. My sister's smirk, my Richard's hand, my Victoria's silence. All of them had stood by for years. Correction, they hadn't just stood by. They'd clapped, laughed, mocked. They treated my existence like a blemish, a bad joke. And tonight, they'd finally stopped pretending otherwise. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. Something inside me had dried up or hardened. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. It came back red. Then I reached for my phone. For a moment, my thumb hovered above the screen. I could call the police, I could call a friend, but none of those people knew what to do with a family like mine. Then I saw her name, Natalie Cross. 3 years ago, I helped her land a consulting job when no one else would vouch for her blackballed after exposing corruption in her firm. Back then. She said, "If you ever need to ruin someone, Sienna, anyone call me first." I'd laughed at the time, but I wasn't laughing now. I tapped her contact. The phone rang once, then twice. "Era." Her voice was low alert. "I need your help," I said. Now a pause. "Then are you safe?" "Not really." "Who hurt you?" "My Richard, my sister, all of them." "What do you want to do?" I stared at the cracked leather on my steering wheel. My lip was still bleeding. My scalp throbbed. "I want them to lose everything they've built on top of me." There was a silence on the line. "Not hesitation, calculation." Good Natalie finally said, "Send me everything you have." And Sienna, yes. By morning, they'll wish they had just left you invisible. I sat in my car for a few minutes after the call ended, the screen of my phone glowing in the darkness. My fingers trembled as I opened the photo app and began selecting the pictures I'd taken months ago. Screenshots of my Richard's messages threatening to cut me off bank transfers. I wasn't supposed to see emails from Madison mocking me behind my back, even old family photos where I'd been literally cropped out. I added one more, a fresh photo of my face, split lip, bruising jaw, hair ripped from my scalp. No caption needed. Then I typed one sentence in the message to Natalie. Here's what they call family. I hit send. 2 minutes later, she responded with a Dropbox link. Upload everything here. I'm mobilizing. Mobilizing. She said it like she was launching a mission. And in a way, she was. I drove home in silence. No music, no thoughts I wanted to hold on to. Just the hum of the engine and the faint sound of glass heels clicking in my memory. Madison's laugh echoing over it all. By the time I reached my apartment, Natalie had already messaged again. I want names companies who promoted her. I gave it all. Madison's firm, her boss's name. The board members I remembered from the party. The country club my parents flaunted the donors. They courted the charities they sat on as pillars of the community. Natalie didn't reply with emojis or dramatics. Just perfect. I know 3 people who hate them already. That was the thing about Natalie. She didn't burn bridges. She built networks out of ashes. By midnight, she had pulled records. She discovered that Madison's promotion had come with a confidential internal investigation buried 6 months earlier. One involving questionable expense reports and an HR complaint that mysteriously disappeared. Looks like someone bought silence, Natalie messaged. Wonder how your Richards donations lined up with that date. She cross-referenced public filings, campaign contributions, and business grants. It was like watching a magician perform surgery. And all I had to do was let go of silence. I sat on my bed in an oversized hoodie, hair still tangled in ice pack, pressed to my jaw. But inside, something had shifted. I wasn't just bleeding. I was documenting. And I wasn't alone anymore. As the clock ticked past 2:00 a.m., Natalie sent a final message for the night. By sunrise, we'll have the narrative. You gave them a party. Now we give them a reckoning. I stared at that sentence until the screen dimmed. Then I whispered to myself, they shouldn't have made me the ghost. They should have made me the warning. I woke up to the buzz of my phone vibrating across the nightstand. It was 6:14 a.m. Natalie, it's live. Check your inbox. I sat up, body sore, like I'd been in a car crash, or rather a family ambush. I grabbed my laptop and opened the link. There it was, a blog post, but not just any blog post. A calculated takedown dressed in polished language. Headlines in bold. Hail legacy promotions, parties, and patterned abuse. How power silence and family loyalty feed the cycle no one wants to talk about. The article didn't name me, but it named them. It began with anonymous testimony, me describing a violent outburst at a private corporate event. Then it traced donations from my Richards shell companies to the very firm that had fast-tracked Madison's rise. There were footnotes, screenshots, financial timelines, and finally, an embedded 20 second video clip. Not the full scene, just enough. My Richard raising his voice, Madison smirking a blur of motion, and then my scream as he dragged me away. There was no blood, no face, but enough to suggest truth. Enough to make people curious. Enough to make them ask, who was she? And how many times has this happened before? Within 2 hours, the blog had spread like wildfire on Twitter and LinkedIn. Natalie messaged again. It's trending in HR forums, and guess who just put their Instagram on private? I smirked. At 9:23 a.m., an email leaked from an anonymous whistleblower inside Madison's company. The same person who'd watched her laugh that night. The email was short. I've seen it. I was there. It wasn't the first time she watched something awful happen and did nothing. Suddenly, it wasn't just about abuse. It was about corporate culture reputation liability. By noon, Madison had been suspended pending internal review. I sat on the floor of my apartment phone in one hand, coffee in the other. My scalp still ached, but I felt calm. Natalie called. There's movement on your dad's front, too, she said. A local journalist wants to speak off record about misappropriated funds tied to a charity he chairs. I laughed short and bitter. Of course there is. They're sharks, Natalie said, but they smell blood now and it's not yours. By 3:00 p.m., my Victoria had called twice. I let it ring. I wanted her to sweat. I wanted her to imagine me picking up, saying something sharp and final. But I wasn't done yet. Let them wonder. Let them spiral. Let them feel the silence they once forced on me. Because now, every second, they remained quiet. The world filled in the blanks for them, and this time the story wasn't theirs to control. The message came in at 4:12 p.m. from Mom. Please come to the house. We need to talk, just us. Family. For a moment, I almost laughed. Family. That word sounded so cheap now, like wallpaper trying to cover bloodstains. Then came another from Madison. You've made your point. Come fix this before it's too late. No apology, just panic. Still I went. Not because I wanted reconciliation. I just wanted to look them in the eye while they watched the walls cave in. The house looked the same. Pristine lawn wreath on the door, perfect suburban lie. But inside, the air was tight, nervous. Dad sat in the formal living room, elbows on knees. Madison stood near the window, arms crossed her phone, clutched like a weapon. Mom offered tea like we were still pretending. No one said hello. We know what you've been doing. Dad began, his voice strained. Do you, I said, lowering my bag to the floor. Because I've just been telling the truth. You're the ones who made it a scandal. Madison scoffed. This is career-ending stuff. Then you should have behaved like someone with a career worth protecting. She stepped forward, voice shaking. You ambushed us. You've humiliated Dad. Me for what a slap, I stared at her. It wasn't just a slap, it was years. Years of being ignored, diminished, shoved aside, and then you watched him hit me and you smiled. My Victoria looked away. Dad rose. You came here to talk, so let's talk like adults. I raised my brows. Is that what adults do? Punch their children in front of 99 witnesses. You embarrass the family. He barked. You shamed yourselves. I snapped. I just held up the mirror. There was a silence. Then, like clockwork, came the offer. We'd like to make this right, my Victoria said, carefully reaching for a neat folder on the coffee table. Privately sign a confidentiality agreement. We'll issue a formal apology. Transfer funds. You walk away with dignity. Dignity? I reached for the folder, skimmed it. Non-disclosure, waiver of legal claims, gag clause. I closed it slowly and placed it back down. You think this is about money? I said, rising to my feet. You think you can pay me to forget being dragged across a ballroom like garbage with money you stole from my trust, Madison's face-palled? That's not proven. Oh, it will be. My eyes met my Richard's. You should have just left me invisible. You made me unforgettable. Then I turned to the door. Sienna, my Victoria, called desperate now. Please, if this goes on, I paused, hand on the knob. If this goes on, I said, without turning, you'll learn what it feels like to be erased by the very daughter you tried to destroy. Then I walked out, and none of them followed. They thought I'd reached my peak, that calling them out, publicly refusing their hush money, was the end of my ammunition. They had no idea it was only the beginning. When I got home, Natalie was already waiting on a video call. She didn't smile. She didn't ask how the meeting went. She simply said, "They leaked a video to the press." My stomach dropped. What video? She shared her screen. There it was, a heavily edited clip from the party spliced to show my Richard gently talking, my voice raised and aggressive, my sister looking concerned. They made me look unstable, like a volatile woman lashing out at a loving family. I stared at it, jaw tightening. They're rewriting reality. Natalie nodded. Sloppy job, but enough for people to question you. Comments were already pouring in. Drama queen. She probably hit him first, another spoiled kid playing victim. I felt the heat rise to my face. I want to burn it all down, I said. Natalie didn't flinch. Then let's raise the temperature. She leaned back. Remember the email transfers the shell companies? Of course, we're going public. Not just your story. The money trail, the bribes, the corruption that built their whole empire. I hesitated for a moment. It'll ruin them. She looked directly at me. They tried to ruin you first. That night, we pulled together the final package. Trust fund theft donation to promotion patterns, Madison's involvement in covering up HR complaints, anonymous testimonies from staff who feared retaliation. Then came the final piece, the full, unedited video. Natalie had secured the original from a waiter who had recorded everything and been fired the next day. It showed everything. My Richard's hand, my scream. Madison raising her glass in mockery, the silence of the crowd. I uploaded the file to our secure drive and looked at Natalie. "Are you ready?" she asked. "I was born ready," I said. "They just never thought I'd remember." She pressed send. It didn't take long. Within 3 hours, the video had gone viral. Oris trended. People who once toasted my sister were now tagging the company, demanding a response. By morning, Madison's firm had suspended her indefinitely. My Richard's nonprofit website had gone offline. A journalist reached out to confirm the wire fraud allegations. But none of that felt like victory. Not yet. Because I wasn't finished. Not until the court saw what the internet already knew. Not until their names were attached to charges. Not just shame. Not until the next Sienna wouldn't have to bleed to be believed. So I got dressed, printed out everything, and stood outside the courthouse steps. They thought I was done, but I was just getting started. The courthouse lobby was colder than I expected, all marble and silence, and the low hum of nerves. I clutched the manila folder in my hands like armor. Inside, printed bank statements, trust fund documentation, and stills from the video, now seen by over 2 million people. Catherine, my attorney, met me at the elevator. "Are you ready?" I nodded. I didn't smile. This wasn't a victory lap. This was war. Inside the courtroom, they were already there. My Richard sat stiff in a tailored gray suit, jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. My Victoria sat beside him, her hands perfectly folded in her lap, eyes swollen, though I wasn't sure if it was from guilt or image panic. Madison stared forward, unmoving. She didn't even look at me. Good. She could pretend this wasn't happening. The public wasn't pretending anymore. Catherine stood first. "Your Honor, this is not just a family dispute. This is a documented case of physical assault, financial abuse, and systematic silencing." She moved like a scalpel, calm, sharp, and deliberate. Each piece of evidence landed with quiet devastation. The bank transfers from my trust fund into shell corporations. The timing of those deposits aligned with Madison's promotion and political contributions. The audio clips of my Richard threatening to cut me off. And finally, the video. The full video. The room fell utterly silent as it played. Some people in the gallery gasped. One woman whispered, "Oh my God." When it ended, no one said a word. Catherine looked at the judge. This is not a smear campaign. This is a pattern. One they thought would stay hidden behind a veneer of success and silence. My Richard's lawyer fumbled with papers. "Your Honor, this is character assassination." "No." The judge interrupted, eyes narrowed. "This is evidence." The rest of the proceedings were a blur. Motions filed, subpoenas issued, a civil case opened for restitution. But the real shift didn't come from the law. It came when I stepped out of the courthouse and faced the press. Microphones pointed, cameras clicked. I took a breath, looked into the lenses, and said, "I've been told for most of my life that silence is survival. That loyalty means letting people hurt you behind closed doors. That family means never fighting back." I held up the folder in my hand. But this isn't about revenge. It's about truth. It's about standing up even if your knees are shaking. Because no daughter should have to bleed for people to see her. I paused, then added, "They tried to erase me. Now I'm writing my own name." The footage aired everywhere. Local, national, even a few international outlets. The public support was overwhelming, messages from survivors, lawyers, offering help, a foundation reaching out to partner with me on abuse advocacy. My sister issued a brief, soulless apology. My Richard's charity collapsed. My Victoria stopped calling. But the real victory, I could finally look in the mirror and see someone whole. Not broken, not rage-filled, just real. Weeks later, I returned to the same party venue, not for revenge, for closure. I walked across that marble floor, no blood this time, no eyes judging, no laughter aimed like knives. I stood where I'd been hit. Then I pulled a thin chain from my purse, a silver necklace my Victoria once tore from my neck during a fight when I was 17. I'd kept it, somehow carried it like a wound. I fastened it back around my neck right there. Not because it fixed anything, but because this time I chose how the story ends.